Hey, what's up everybody? This is Jason, and today I'm going to look at the new hi-hat features that come with firmware 1.3 for the Alesis Strike Pro kit. Alright, so let's take a deeper look at the hi-hat settings that come with the 1.3 firmware update. So before I get started with that, for those who aren't aware, the edge sensor is opposite of the Alesis logo on the hi-hat. So the bow sensor is all the way around, but the edge sensor is just about this 6-7 inch distance here opposite of the logo. So I did a video to show you how to get your cymbals to stop from spinning, and it's pretty irritating if the hi-hat is doing that as well. So that will also depend on what kind of hi-hat stand you have. I just have a basic Yamaha 840 hi-hat stand, so there's no lock for the rod, so it does screw in. You can screw it in tight, but when you're playing, mine tend to spin as well. So I usually have my edge and bow setting set as the exact same sound, so there's not a difference. And again, for being a hobby player and doing some home recording, it works well enough for me. So let's get into the settings. First thing, make sure you have note chase set up. Note chase allows you to, whatever pad that you hit, it's going to select it when you go into the editor. So when you go into triggers, first thing you'll notice there's a pedal option at the bottom to adjust pedal settings. So for these tests, I've got all the faders off for everything, and I've got the hi-hat up, so there shouldn't be any crosstalk or any other interference or noise coming through. So first there is a hi-hat reset, which it doesn't give you any feedback on screen about what to do, but you play as you normally would for about 30 seconds or so, and it recalibrates the hi-hat. To be honest, I really didn't notice much of a difference after going through that process anyway, but oh well, give it a shot and see if it works for you. So these are the settings on the pedal. The tightness, so depending on the travel distance you have between the top and the bottom pads, adjusting the tightness knob is going to allow you to create a threshold for when you hear the open sound versus the closed sound, and also how much tension you need to put on the foot pedal to hear the open and closed sound. The chick, so that's the when you stomp on it, the closed chick sound, it allows you to adjust the sensitivity of that. So if you have it set pretty high, you don't need to put a lot of force on the foot pedal to make that sound as well. And the splash, so that will adjust how easy it is to make that splash sound as well. The settings that I have here are what I have it, what I prefer to have it set up for, except I'm usually on linear. There we go. So I'll do a little quick playing test so you can hear what it sounds like with these settings. So for me, these settings give me the most natural playing feel. You could see in that little quick demo a couple of times where I was doing the splash or trying to get a splash, it wouldn't register. I think that has more to do with technique than anything else. But if that's something that you're doing often, you can also increase the splash as well. So let's just test these settings on the extreme ends so you can see the difference. So first, tightness. If I put that down to 0, so I have to put quite a lot of force on the pedal, so I'll hear the closed sound. So that's why I generally keep mine at around 10 or 12, because that feels the most natural, gives me the best dynamic response. And of course the opposite is true. So I basically have to take my foot completely off the pedal to get the open sound based on the travel distance I have between the top and the bottom pad. So between adjusting the mechanical part and adjusting the tightness, I think it'd be pretty easy for anybody to get their preference set up. I just feel wise, I like to have my travel distance a bit lower. So having the tightness option is really good for me actually. So I'll put this back to the original spot, and now let's move on to here. I'm stomping fairly hard. So if I stomp very lightly, you can see the differences there. So if I crank this up, I'm barely touching the pedal. And the splash effect I usually just keep at 50. So I'm just stomping and releasing so you can hear the differences. Now if I crank this up to 99. It's a lot harder to make that splash sound. So I like to keep mine right in the middle. So the one weird part about the settings is just, maybe it's just my brain, but setting the splash higher, I would think it would increase the likelihood of creating that splash sound, because setting the chick higher increases the sensitivity or the chick sound being registered. And it seems like it's opposite for me dial wise. And also the tightness, it depends on how you interpret it. So, the tightness for me could be the tighter you have it, the harder it is that you have to push down, which is kind of exactly how it works. So sometimes the settings on the knobs just, might be a little bit weird, but play around with it and I'm sure you can find something that suits your playing style. So here's with the chick set to my default setting, which is 20. So now here it is where I have it set to 99. So I'm going to put it back to my default setting. I usually have it set between 20 and 25. And now tightness. So let's play and so that's at my default tightness of 12. Let me crank that up to 99. And let's put it back down to let's put it to 15. Now that is what you're seeing right there. That's most of the travel between closed and partially open for me, which is what I like. I find between the settings I have, that gives me a really good natural feel. So final verdict on 1.3 specifically for the hi-hats, I think it's a pretty good update. So the quick comparison video that I did comparing 1.0 to 1.3, I was pretty disappointed with that initial response. So even after doing the calibration, it felt worse. So I had to mess around with the height of the pads, plus the settings that I showed you to be able to adjust the tightness and the chick and the splash as well. So I finally got it to a point where it feels really good for me. But like I mentioned in the video, especially with the way Alesis has their edge sensor set up, it's not the whole pad for the edge for the hi-hats. And if you do have a problem with your hi-hat spinning, that can be a bit of a pain if you're playing sometimes. But I've been able to find a setting that works really well for me. And I generally use the same sounds for the bow versus the edge anyway. So it's not that big of a deal for me anymore. But it does feel a lot better. The other thing I noticed, so while I was doing these tests, I had all the faders off except for the hi-hat. I've noticed that they are a lot louder than they used to be. So I did have a few problems just with the ride where I'd be playing along and then all of a sudden the volume would just go away. So I'd actually have to shake the fader to get the ride sound to come back up. I took a quick video of that, but I don't think I'm going to post it because I think a couple of other people kind of expressed that same problem as well. But with the new update, the hi-hats are a lot louder. So when I have my faders set up kind of in a natural playing position, I have to put the hi-hats way, way down. And if you do a lot of, I keep time with my left foot like a lot of drummers do. So when I'm playing the ride, being able to adjust the chick sound, I think is really cool because I tend to play a lot of opposite times with my left foot when I'm playing. And if I have that setting cranked up, like you really hear it very loud and prominent, and I want it to be a little bit more subtle. So it's kind of cool that you can adjust those as well. So I'm pretty happy with 1.3. I think it is a good step forward. I mean, like I said in my last video, the pads are still like hitting a block of wood, but when you consider the VH13s are $1,000, that's half of a Strike Pro kit. Right there. So I don't think I could justify spending that much. And if you're really worried about good hi-hat performance, odds are you're not watching this video and you're not really into electronic drums anyway. So they work pretty well for me. So I'm pretty happy with it. Like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment, and let me know if there's something else you want me to test about the Alesis Strike Pro kit.